Back the Blue rally. My name is Leon Grimm, the Chief of South Heidelberg Police, which provides service to the borough of Robesonia, as well as Wernersville, Heidelberg Township, and of course, South Heidelberg Township. I'd like to direct your attention to the west end of the street as the Berks County Sheriff's Honor Guard presents the colors. If you're able, please stand as the colors pass. Present the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Ryan Noyce. Ryan will lead us in the invocation. Ryan Noyce is 9.5 years old and is going to the 4th grade in the Elko School District. A resident of Newmanstown, Lebanon County, Ryan is an avid baseball fan, especially the Phillies, and he plays for the Baseball Town Charities Dream League based in Reading. In his off-season, Ryan enjoys playing sled hockey with the Palmyra Knights and rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. When he's not busy watching or playing sports, Ryan enjoys reading, playing the piano, and doing crazy science experiments with his dad. And he is active with the Trinity Lutheran Church here in Robesonia. Ryan?
Thank you, Chief. Dear Lord, we pray that you keep our officers and law enforcement personnel safe. Guide them and help them stop crime. Help them to treat all people equally and fairly. Protect them from harm during the performance of their duty to stop crime. Give them courage and strength to do what's right for our community. We also pray for their families and friends that they can have courage, knowing that you will keep them safe. Thank you for the promise, Lord, that you will be with them while they do what is right to help our community. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as Pennsylvania State Police Lieutenant Ron Richards will present our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Is Mr. Derek Weiss still available for the pledge?
Please put your hands over your heart and recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to recognize some other people that put this event together and acknowledge others who donated items to make the event a success. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the mayor, Randy Gardner. the mayor of Robesonia, who came up with the idea for the event. Mayor Gartner has a passion for his community and has not only served numerous times as mayor and on Borough Council, but is on the Conrad Weiser School District as well. In addition to his community service, Mayor Gartner is a United States Navy veteran and proudly admits that some of his favorite times in the Navy were spent helping the Marines get to their destination to do the serious fighting. I'd also like to acknowledge the president of Robesonia Borough Council, Harvey Marshall, and Fire Police Captain Mike Martin, who also serves on council and are huge supporters of the police and spend countless hours helping the residents of Robesonia. We also need to thank the entire Robesonia Borough Council and Borough Manager Lisa Heilman for their support in making this rally happen. Donations were received by Osgood's Restaurant, the Robesonia Community Association, Barry Gelman, Lisa Gartner, and the Conrad Weiser Hardware Store. A special thank you to Mike Mano for the amazing banner that's directly behind me. Above me, thank you. And a large anonymous donation was also made to provide the food and drinks for the event, so I'd also like to thank that person for their selfless donation. Also need to thank Chris Nine and Mortgage American Why Missing for paying to have Wacky Patty here for the balloon art for the kids. Patty is located by the police cars if you have young children here, or you like any sort of specially ballooned animal to take home to the kids, grandkids, what have you. She's over there free of charge thanks to that donation. Also like to thank the 3% organization is helping man the food stand and raffle, so I thought I'd like to thank them. A lot of those guys came from across the state. I was talking to a couple of gentlemen that came all the way from up in the Delaware Water Gap and as far as Chambersburg to be here as well. So if you get food or raffle tickets, thank those gentlemen for coming and volunteering their time and be here, help us with this event on Sunday. I want to thank Sheriff Eric Weeknick. He's not able to be here today, but he provided the honor guard for us. Lieutenant State Trooper Dave Boehm, who's here with one of the state police cars on display. And of course, Lieutenant Richard, who's did the amazing rendition of the national anthem. Lieutenant Richards will be back at the conclusion to do one final song. What do you want to stick around for? He has amazing talent. The South Heidelberg Police Department has ribbons that were donated by Crime Alert Berks. They're free of charge, blue ribbons. We have several hundred to give away. So make sure on your way out you grab a couple of those. Again, they're free of charge. We have some patches and some signs for sale as well. And of course, as Mayor Gartner said, there's a 50-50 drawing and raffle items for sale. So there's no doubt that the police across the country are having a tough time. Like so many times before, I thought the trouble would have passed by now. Yet when things start to calm down, another crisis unfolds and then we're back as the lead story in the news again. But let me be clear, Berks County has been great, especially here in the western part of Berks County. Zero violence against police, no property damage, and more support from local businesses, political leaders like the mayor and borough council, and members of the community like you that came out and supported the police. I can't thank you guys enough for coming out and helping us and be supportive of the police officers that are here and on duty everywhere across not only the county, but the state as well. There seems to be a segment of the population that's fighting harder to change a few bad police than rather fighting hardened criminals. Letting criminals out of jail, giving new offenders zero bail and turning them right back around to recommit crimes, and then making budget cuts in our country's most crime-ridden cities. Imagine we have that same energy when it came to keeping crime under control. Whether budgets are cut by a little to defund or by billions of dollars like New York City, one of the first cost-saving measures that police departments must do to decrease fund or expenses is to cut training. If you think about that for a moment, in the exact moment that in time that officers could use more training and use of force, de-escalation tactics, those training budgets are going away. Next would be recruitment. Fewer new officers to place those who are retiring or simply walking away from the job that no longer appreciates them. Remember back a few months back, we were all panicked because we couldn't find toilet paper? Imagine the day when you can't find a police officer. That's real panic. Whether from defunding or from a very real problem, recruitment. Who are you going to find that wants to do this job right now? I'm going to get a little bit political here and quote a Baltimore police officer. His name is Officer Parker, and he has amazing social media following. How does one conquer a nation? You divide it first. Because if you can make people believe that the people sworn to protect you are in fact the enemy, then half the battle is already won. Life is about choices. I've watched people go from homeless or grow making housing projects in Reading and become very successful. And I've watched people who started with everything throw it all away with drugs and alcohol. We need to get away from the victim mentality. We have to get away from being entitled. If you want to change things, make good choices. Work harder than the other guy and stop blaming others. So what can we do? I think this is a great start by you all being here today. By showing up here, you help give the good police officers a voice and let them know that you won't be silent. By showing up here, you've let the police officers know that there are way more supporters than the media would lead you to believe. And by showing up here, you let all of us know that you still love America and our police. Thank you. I have the pleasure now to introduce retired Sergeant Donald Amon from the Spring Township Police. Sergeant Donald Amon spent 18 years with the Spring Township Police Department before a tragic accident while he was on duty in 2007, which forced him to medically retire in 2010. Please welcome Sergeant Amon.
Good afternoon. As Leon said, my name is Donald Amon. I'm a retired sergeant for the Township of Springs Police Department. In 1988, I applied for the position of an officer, and after the written test, I qualified to take the oral interview. I arrived at the police department and knocked on the door marked police office. An officer opened the door and asked what I wanted. And the officer said, with a grin, "Why are you here?" I said I was there for the interview. He said, "If you are to be a paid observer, you would have seen the signs of where to go," and he closed the door on my stunned face. That officer was Steve Doherty, and he became one of my partners for most of the next 10 years. Unfortunately, Steve passed away just a few weeks ago after a short fight with cancer at the age of 67. In September of 1988, I had just been released from training and I was working a 3 to 11 shift. I was dispatched to the Dwight Street Bridge behind the old Pizza Hut in West Lawn, where they said there was a woman on the outside part of the bridge. The bridge has been there longer than the police department had existed, which was over 40 years at that time. And no one had attempted to jump off of it. So I was told by Steve, it must be a mistake. I arrived and yes, there was a Hispanic female on the outside of the bridge. I requested for backup and an ambulance to the location and began to talk to her. She didn't want me to get too close to her, but just as I got across from her, a train came on the tracks west below that bridge. She panicked and let go of the railings. And as she began to fall, I reached over and grabbed her. Another officer, Mike Messner, and I were able to get her back over the railing and safely away from the bridge. She agreed to go to the hospital. She agreed to go to the hospital only as long as I stayed with her. After I left that hospital, I never saw that woman again, but can only hope she was able to find peace and happiness in her life. Later that evening, Sergeant Charles Montgomery came up to me and said that he had never seen anything more courageous by a rookie than the risk and quick actions I took that day. In reality, I'm not sure if I was brave or a little crazy. And to be honest, I was just as scared as she was. I later had doubts as to whether I could actually do this job. I had only been on the job for a month. But I continued to put my uniform on every shift for the next 18 years. During that time, there were plenty of ups and downs, which were scary, challenging, and rewarding, especially serving the citizens of the Township of Spring and my promotion to sergeant. Being a police officer is not just doing the standard police work people think of or see on TV. In 2002, Chief Messner asked me to put a community relations unit together for the township. I was to create any social programs that the community seemed to need, and possibly even an event to have the community meet their officers in a more relaxed atmosphere. I was excited and a little scared to take on this task. One of the programs I put together was a workplace violence program for the local businesses. And since I also wanted to interact with the children of the community, and Chief Messner insisted on something like stranger danger, I began to do some research. I learned that even though stranger danger is a great and was and is a great program, it was missing something. I learned that 75% of all child abductions occurred by someone the child actually knows. So I found an even more effective program called Check First. It taught the children that no matter who asked for them to do something, they were to check first with their parent or guardian. If the parent was not there to ask, then the answer was always no. The township was also awarded a grant for another program, and we were able to receive a mascot named Eddie Eagle. Eddie and I became very close friends and went to various events to promote safety, such as the Reading Phillies games, the Reading Royal games, and numerous parades. As one of the big events that I wanted to create, I found National Night Out. National Night Out is held in August, the first Tuesday of the month of August. The first year we did it at the West Lawn Playground, and sadly we only had 35 people come out to that event. We were very disappointed, but we had only 2 weeks to prepare. So I told my chief, you give me a full year to prepare, and the next one will be better. I also guaranteed that in 5 years, we would make this a success. The next year we went to the Red Caboose Park and 150 people came. Much better. The next year we did it at the township's parking lot and invited other organizations to come out to inform people what they had to offer when the community needed help. That year we were even able to get the state police helicopter to land nearby. We were very excited. 375 people came to that event. Again, much better. At the end of 2004, I was nominated and received the Police Officer of the Year presented by the Private Security Officers Organization for the work that was done with National Night Out. I was very, very humble, but it wasn't just my work. It was a group effort. Every year, the events seemed to be growing, and in 2005, we held the event at the Lincoln Park Pool, where it is still held. And we were able to ask for more organizations to attend. We had 20 to 25 organizations come for the first event. The numbers doubled, and we had 750 people come to that event. At this event, we were also able to raise money for Wilson Community That Cares and Crime Alert Berks County. In 2006, we had 900 people, and we also asked the officers from the Wyomissing Police Department to join us as a group effort. We also added the Scott Wirtz Memorial Fund as one of our organizations we were raising funds for. In 2007, we went over 1,000 people at that event. In 5 years, my promise was a reality, and I'm extremely proud to say that even though it was canceled this year because of COVID, For the most part, this event is held every year by the Township of Spring, and we went over 1,300 people 2 years ago. Unfortunately, my life changed on May 28, 2007. That afternoon, while setting up a traffic detail on the southbound lanes of 222, I was struck by a car, pinned into a concrete barrier and thrown 38 feet over that barrier, landing on the passing lane of the northbound lane. I suffered numerous injuries, including 2 breaks in my upper left arm, a break to my left shoulder blade, a broken vertebrae, ribs, damage to my left hip, left knee, left ankle was broken, and a TBI. It's a traumatic brain injury. The day of the accident happened to be Memorial Day, and a group of fire personnel were holding its annual picnic, and one of their guests arrived and said that he didn't know what Spring had going on 222, but it's a mess. Tell everybody to avoid it. A short time later, another guest arrived and told the gathering that Sergeant Amon was hit by a car on 222, and he looks to be seriously injured. The picnic was shut down, and many of the participants came to do whatever was needed at that scene. Later, when I heard of this in the hospital, I was not only humbled, I was very proud to say that I was a member of a great community of people, both police and fire, during my time at Spring Township. They are really good, caring people. Unfortunately, my recovery was long and hard, and I was unable to recover enough to continue being a police officer. In 2010, I had a very sad decision to make, and I retired. It is now 13 years later from that accident, and I continue to deal with cognitive issues from the brain injury. I still have pain in my left side, and these things prevent me from even working any job. Before my accident, I took 3 pills during the day, 2 vitamins, and 1 allergy med. Now I take 18 pills in the morning to get me going and lessen the pain, 7 in the afternoon to keep me going and manage that pain, and an additional 13 in the evening to help me slow down and continue to stop the pain. That's a total of 37 pills I take in a 24-hour period. What a change. And still to this day, I wake up and I miss my job. As a police officer, very much. We need everyone to understand the officers in your community and their families sacrifice so much to be there when the members in their community need help. They are there 24/7 to keep the community safe. And this kind of event reminds us that you, the community, is standing here right next to us, and you appreciate that sacrifice. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being here today and showing that support, which is greatly appreciated by each and every officer, be it retired or currently serving. Thank you again.
Thank you, Don. We have two more raffle winners here for Back the Blue Hats. The first one is 917494. 917494. And the second one is 117894. 117894. Again, on the red ticket,
Serves
91.
on the Berks County Heroes Fund. Trish has gone back to teaching now by substituting for Wilson School District when she is able. Trish also has a daughter with her significant other, Brian Salento. Trish and her family currently reside in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania. Please help me in welcoming Trish Wirtz.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank Chief Grimm for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful event. It truly is an honor and a privilege for me to be here with you this afternoon. I'll start by telling you my story for those who don't know. On August 6th, 2006, my husband, Reading Police Officer Scott Wirtz, was shot and killed in the line of duty. He had been with the Reading Police Department for 9 years. Before that, he worked part-time for the Sinking Spring and your very own South Heidelberg Township Police Departments, while working full-time as a corrections officer at the Berks County Prison. We have 2 boys who were 7 and 12 at the time he was killed. Scott loved his family, mostly being a dad, being a cop, the Dallas Cowboys, sorry Eagles fans, the New York Yankees, playing softball, drinking beer, and just life itself. He was the life of the party. That fateful night, Scott, who was part of the PSP Auto Theft Task Force, was working a plainclothes detail. He and his partner were driving around running license plates when they parked on a corner. They had no intentions of getting out of the car, therefore Scott was not wearing his vest. Ironically, they were parked on the same block as the police station when shots rang out. Scott and his partner, Mick, observed a man running away from the scene, tucking a gun into his waistband. They got out of the car, and Scott started chasing him as Mick ran parallel on the other side of the street to cut the man off. As Scott got close to the man, he turned slightly and shot Scott in the chest. Scott fell forward onto the man. The man got another shot off, shooting Scott in the groin with a bullet traveling up through his body. Mick then tackled the man. The trial was almost 2 years to the day that Scott was killed. That man was found guilty and sentenced to death. I wish I could say that that is where my story ends, but unfortunately it is not. Thanks to our sometimes screwed up justice system, the lawsuit brought on by the ACLU on behalf of death row inmates in Pennsylvania, and our ignorant governor, this man now has the same rights as every other prisoner in Pennsylvania, and more than Scott will ever have. In fact, we have another appeal hearing set for this November where they have tried to get me to agree to 25 years for him to drop his appeals. As I won't, trust me. I'll fight to the day I die. Thank you. As I contemplated what to speak about here this afternoon, many things crossed my mind. I've experienced severe loss, anger, grief, despair, loneliness, and many other negative emotions, but I decided a long time ago I was not going to let that man take anything else away from me. Therefore, I chose to live. I chose happiness, joy, and love again. As I prepared my speech, I thought a lot about who I would be speaking to this afternoon and why they were here. I then thought a lot about my long journey, the past 14 years, and decided I wanted to speak about the one thing I never thought I would have again, and that's hope. As a wise widow once said to me when I became one myself, you are now part of a club that no one ever wants to be a part of. When my husband was killed, hope was not something I thought I would ever have again, and I didn't for a long time. But in May of 2007, after I participated in my first of many memorials, ceremonies, and events, I finally began to understand the brotherhood that truly exists in this blue family. This brotherhood was the beginning of that glimpse of hope for me, hope that I had been longing for, the hope that Scott and his sacrifice would never be forgotten, and the hope that I would never be alone in this journey. During that time is when I also learned about and eventually got involved with 2 very important organizations that are near and dear to my heart, Concerns of Police Survivors and Law Enforcement United. I honestly don't know where I would be today without these wonderful organizations that continue to give me hope. As you know, our police put on that uniform every day and risk their lives hoping to make the world a better place. For the work of our police is ongoing and never ending. And while I know our police officers do not serve their country, state, or community, anticipating that their names will go on a memorial or a wall, they do serve bravely and honorably, running toward danger while the rest of us run away. They strive to be that thin line that separates good from evil, calm from chaos. So when one falls in the line of duty, it is our obligation to assure their service will always be remembered. We must also assure their survivors and their department are adequately supported and also never forgotten. And thanks to many of you here today, that continues to happen, because it has for me. As you look around, you see these people dedicated to assuring our police officers will never be forgotten. I say our police officers because even though you may not personally know a police officer that was fallen or that has fallen, we all feel a sense of loss. It's not just a family that loses a police officer, it is a community. Since Scott's death, many people I've never known have come up to me and shared kind words about him or their story of how he helped them or what a great officer he was. Average people like you and me, whom I had never met. It was then that I began to learn about a side of Scott that I never knew. And in those stories, I also realized the day-to-day humility Scott had and never talked about because he wasn't looking for recognition or validation. He was just doing his job and trying to make a difference like so many of you. The other most recurring things I've heard said is, I didn't personally know Scott, but thank you for his sacrifice keeping me safe, or I'm sorry for your loss. This became my foundation for hope. So if you ever lose hope, know that many people care. As I think about hope, there are many things that I hope for. Hope that despite what is going on in this crazy world today, our police officers know that there will always be public support. Hope that we as a community will always rally behind our police officers despite what other groups are doing. Hope that with the world becoming more and more dangerous, we will continue to do our part to make it a better place for our police officers, our families, and our children, and fight for what is right. Hope that citizens in the community will realize that it takes a special person to be a police officer, someone who has dedication, persistence, perseverance, patience, bravery, courage, empathy, sympathy, all while knowing there is not much gratification, not much pay, and they are hated by many. The unfortunate thing about being a police officer is that these individuals typically only get to deal with a citizen when they are having a personal crisis, some sort of distress in their life, an accident, or attempting to deal with someone who broke the law and doesn't want to get caught or arrested. Most people absolutely have no idea what our police officers have to deal with on a daily basis, the images they can't forget. Police officers seldomly get to interact with citizens on good terms, but most importantly, those officers are people who serve others at all costs. I would like to think if those who have fallen could speak to us today, they would speak words of humble thankfulness for recognizing their lives and their sacrifices. I'm also certain they would ask that we continue to recognize, look out for, and care for their loved ones, their family, their friends, and especially their brothers and sisters in blue, who continue to hold that line. I imagine they would say thank you for the assurance that my life and sacrifices will not be forgotten, and I know that my family's sacrifices and their grief will not be forgotten either. I want to thank all of you here, especially the Brotherhood, for all that you do. It's because of you that I am able to offer hope. I only ask for one thing from you. If you ever lose hope and you feel desperate or like life isn't worth living anymore, reach out. Reach out to someone, please. I beg you, get help. Do not let pride or shame get in the way. There are too many of you, and people don't realize there are so many officers that take their own lives every year, and not enough being done to help them, and we need to fix that. In closing, I ask you all to remember what Christopher Reeves said. Once you choose hope, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. I'd like to ask people over there under the pavilion, I know you got to talk to order and stuff like that, but try to keep the conversations down so others can hear. I agree with you, Trish, about your feelings about this governor, and so I'd like to tell you a little joke. There was these 3 surgeons, and they talked about surgeries that they had performed over the years. And the first one said, I had a guy, got his arm caught in a piece of farm machinery, ripped it off up here at the shoulder, and I sewed it back on. Today he's a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the other 2 surgeons said, that's pretty good. Second surgeon said, I had one guy got run over by a train. Both his legs were cut off above the knees, and I sewed him back on. Today he's a running back for the Buffalo Bills. And the other 2 surgeons says, wow, that's really good. Third one said, I had a guy who was involved in a terrible car accident, All I had to work with were his eyebrows and his anus. And today, he's Governor Wolf. We have some more raffle tickets. We have some more raffle winners, I should say. First one is 917494, 917414. That's on a red ticket. On a white ticket, 117891, 117891. On a red ticket, 917631, 917631. And on a white ticket, 117891. So just see me over here at the side, and we'll give you your awards, your prizes. Thank you.
Mayor. Now going to turn the program back over to the mayor, Randy Gardner.
Thank you, Chief. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. I'd like to thank Robesonia Borough Council, Harvey Marshall, the president, Mike Martin, who's president of the fire company, for all their help. The 3%ers of Pennsylvania, they're manning the food stands and selling the raffle tickets. All the food over there is free. It's we have had some nice donations, and so we want to thank everybody for all their help. Back in 1969, I enlisted in the United States Navy, and there was a lot of things going on back then which were very similar to what's happening today. A lot of big cities, there was race riots, burning and looting. On college campuses, there were anti-war demonstrations, and it wasn't a good time to be in uniform, whether you were a police officer or a soldier, sailor, airman, whatever. The police back then were called pigs. A lot of our uniform members were called baby killers. And when we came back from deployment, there was nobody there to welcome us home. Nobody said, thank you for your service, like they do today. But the riots were there, the hatred for our police and our soldiers and sailors. And when I got out of the service in 1974, my mom asked me what I wanted her to do with my uniforms. I told her to burn them. At a time when I should have been proud of my service, I just wanted to get out and go on with life. The media today, they only tell you about the bad cops that you hear about. But most of them, most police officers are, 99% of them are great people. And they work to be a part of their community. They work to keep the community safe. But the media doesn't tell you about these police officers, some of whom became heroes. And I'm going to tell you about some of them in a few minutes. But I want to give an example of bias in the media and not hearing all of the story. Do you remember the shooting in Ferguson of Michael Brown by Officer Darren Wilson? Well, it was all over the paper. You know, the narrative at that time was hands up, don't shoot. Well, you remember who was the president back then? President Obama. And his Justice Department under Attorney General Eric Holder did a painstaking analysis of the shooting. It weighed physical, ballistic, crime scene evidence along with eyewitness testimony. It cleared Officer Wilson of all wrongdoing. It cleared Officer Wilson of violating Brown's civil rights. It also contradicted many news reports that Brown was shot in the back while surrendering. And remember the women of The View, you know, they did this hands up, don't shoot. Well, it was all a lie. Yet the media and the left kept repeating it over and over again. And even today, many people believe that Michael Brown was murdered. But he wasn't. As the report states, Officer Wilson was shooting in self-defense. In 2019, 48 police officers were killed as a result of felonious deaths. 7 of them were black, 1 was Asian, the rest were white. In 2016, 2,870 black Americans were killed. 2,570 of them were murdered by fellow blacks. Only 243 were killed by whites. But now isn't that the narrative today, is that white police officers are murdering unarmed black people? But that's not the case. In 2019, officers fatally shot 1,004 people, most of whom were armed or otherwise dangerous. African Americans were about a quarter of those killed by cops last year, a ratio that has remained stable since 2015. The share of black victims is less than what the black crime rate would predict, since police shootings are a function of how often officers encounter armed and violent suspects. In 2018, the latest year for which such data has been published, African Americans made up 53% of known homicide offenders and commit about 60% of the robberies, although they are only 13% of the population. So notice this: fewer blacks die in the hands of police officers than would be expected given those ratios. Even though more than half of the violent criminals are black, they constitute about 1/4 of the suspects shot by law enforcement. In other words, black criminals are disproportionately less likely to be killed than white criminals. Exactly the same conclusion was arrived at by Roland Fryer, who is a professor of economics at Harvard University. Professor Fryer also happens to be black. A few years ago, he conducted an extensive study in which he investigated how the use of police force plays out among various racial groups. The results of his study have been reported, and his study concluded there is no racial bias when officers fire on suspects. He did the study to see how use of force played out against various racial groups, and he concluded that blacks are actually less likely to be shot than other groups of Americans. A police officer is actually 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black is to be killed by a police officer. Now, if you look at those statistics, an uninformed, and I say this again, an uninformed person might conclude that most blacks are criminals because they commit 53% of all murders and 60% of all robberies. Of course, we know that that isn't true. Let's break it down. The killings are being done by young black males, mostly who are gang members. So a really small number are committing most of the murders. So you can no more conclude that all blacks are criminals than you can conclude that all cops are bad. I am not on Twitter, but I came across the hashtag that has $sign and the letters ACAB. It stands for all cops are bad. Yet if we look at statistics, we know most are good. But I agree that we do need some reforms. I served on both the Robesonia and Western Berks police commissions, and I know there are some officers who should not be policemen. And our legislators need to make it easier to get rid of these bad cops because they are a stain on all the good cops that are out there. Since you're unlikely to hear stories about all the good things police do, I'm going to tell you about some of these cop heroes right now. And as Paul Harvey used to say, and now for the rest of the story. In Nebraska, police officers Robbie Jensen and his partner Anthony Abowd got a call about a house fire in Omaha. Without protective gear, they entered the home and rescued 2 people. When they got outside, they heard screams and went back in and rescued 3 more disabled persons. 2 Los Angeles police officers, Hilton Henry and Stephen Kehoe, were hailed as heroes for their efforts to rescue a small child being held hostage by an armed man. It was April 30th, 1993, when a lone gunman, Victor Lopez, entered a Hollywood restaurant. He cleaned all the cash out of the cash register and he fled with about $600. He headed toward Maplewood Avenue. Lopez knew he had to get out of there in a hurry when he noticed Bob Hu getting into his car. Hu took off with the keys, so Lopez headed for an apartment building where children were playing. Lopez grabbed 12-year-old Susana Guerra and put a gun to her head. Officer Henry and motorcycle officer Kehoe followed the suspect but lost sight of him temporarily. Realizing he had little chance of escape, he drugged the 12-year-old girl into Henry's patrol car. Both officers made the decision not to let Lopez get away with the girl, so they shot out the tires on the patrol car. At this point, Lopez fired at the officers out the back window. The officers, fearing they would hit the little girl, didn't return fire. But then Lopez leaped from the car and shot Officer Kehoe in the leg. Kehoe returned fire, shooting twice at Lopez. As Officer Kehoe was reloading, Lopez shot Kehoe again, this time in the shoulder. Lopez then got back in the police car and started driving away with the two officers following. A short distance away, Lopez crashed into another car. It turned out that Lopez was hit twice. Only when they reached the car did the two officers realize the little girl had escaped unharmed. Victor Lopez was transported to Cedars-Sinai Hospital. En route, his heart stopped twice, but he was revived. Why? I don't know. In the hospital, he went into cardiac arrest, but was revived again. Again, why revive somebody like this? Lopez was convicted and given 2 life sentences. Officer Kehoe went through surgery and was eventually returned to duty. Henry and Kehoe were never assigned to be partners. They became partners through fate. Both officers were awarded the Los Angeles Police Department Medal of Valor. Officer John Grabinski was an Oakland, California police officer. Along with his partner, Barry Howard, Officer Grabinski worked the graveyard shift in a high narcotics area. Barry Howard said his partner was very aggressive, and his guardian angel often had a hard time keeping up with him. The hills above downtown Oakland had been developed in the early 1920s. Previous to the development being built, eucalyptus trees were planted in the area. In 1923, a fire broke out, destroying 584 homes. The development was eventually rebuilt. In 1970, another fire broke out and destroyed 37 homes. But typical of California, they never thinned out the trees or cleaned up the underbrush. On Sunday, October 20th, 1991, the stage was set for the third and largest fire to hit Oakland. About 10:30 that morning, Officer Grabinski, who was working an additional shift, was alerted to the fire and went to help evacuate residents. The fire moved fast, driven by the Diablo winds. Fire ran up the canyon while millions of burning embers rained down. Within 1 hour of the fire being reported, 790 homes were either on fire or had been destroyed. The fire reached 2,000 degrees. At that temperature, everything burns. Nothing could slow the fast-moving flames. Officer Grabinski started evacuating residents, helping them to navigate the smoke-filled streets. Officer Grabinski went back time after time, leading people out. About 5 p.m., John Grabinski found a car with 5 occupants that were trying to get out. They were trying to find their way out. He told them to follow him, but when they got to Charing Cross Road, a burning garage fell onto the road and blocked their escape route. Undaunted, Officer Grabinski ordered the people out of the car and started to lead them down the mountain. But the fire was moving too fast. John Grabinski ordered everyone to lay down in the middle of the street, hoping the fire would jump over them. But there was no way to escape the 2,000-degree temperatures. When their remains were found, Officer Grabinski's body was found on top of a woman he was trying to protect from the fire. Officer Grabinski was survived by his wife and 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 7. He gave his life to save others. Los Angeles County Detective Joy Amber Leist was on her way home when she noticed an elderly woman trying to cross a busy street in a walker. Detective Leist stopped her car and helped the woman safely across the street. As she returned to her car, she was struck and killed by a speeding vehicle. She was 41 and the mother of 2. Texas police officer James Riley was on patrol when he got a call about a young boy walking across the parking lot by himself. He found out the boy was getting snacks for his younger siblings. So Officer Riley drove the boy home, where he found out the family had fallen on hard times. With his own money, Officer Riley bought the family groceries. In Cape Coral, Florida, an 80-year-old man, identified only as Robert, had his bicycle stolen. It was his only means of transportation. Training officer Ken Cody and training Guang Sung went to the local Walmart and bought Robert a brand new bike while they searched for his old one. Utah Highway Patrolman Ruben Correa had been on the force for 2 years when he got a call about a car on the railroad tracks. He arrived at the scene. It appeared that the driver was unconscious and a train was quickly bearing down on the car. Patrolman Correa quickly pulled the man from the car and off the tracks. Correa and the unconscious man rolled down the embankment just as the train hit the car. The total time from when Correa arrived at the scene until the train hit the car was 35 seconds. You don't have to look all over the country to find heroes. We have them right here in Robesonia. Back in 2008, I was on Borough Council. Police Chief Wade Heilman and Officer Ed Wilson were getting ready to switch shifts. It was about 4 o'clock, and a call came in from 911 saying a little girl, just under 2 years old, was missing. So Chief Heilman and Officer Wilson went to the scene and began searching for the little girl. After several minutes, Chief Heilman found the girl floating face down in a pond. He pulled her out, called 911, and began CPR. Officer Wilson heard the call go out, and he came and assisted. Because of their actions, that little girl's alive today. I believe Officer Heilman's here. Wade, are you here? Oh, there he is. Thank you, Wade. So these are some of the stories you won't hear in the national media. But if you do a search on Google, you can find thousands of these stories, because this is stuff that happens every day that police officers do that you don't hear about. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank all the police officers for their service. And I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Grimm. Okay, last call for raffle tickets, and we still have some raffle winners here that haven't picked up their winnings, so we'll announce them again later.
Would you honor me and give a round of applause to the mayor for his service to the Navy? Just a couple of quick more acknowledgments. There's a couple of K-9 teams that showed up since we started. The Sheriff's Department has a couple dogs running around, the handlers. They should have the friendly dogs out. So feel free to just check with the handler first before you approach them. And I believe there's a Reading K-9 team as well here too. So thank you for the Reading Police Department. And the State Police helicopter is about to fly over, so I'll pause for a second. The State Police helicopter is going to do a couple flybys, and then we'll continue.
Okay, you got your tickets out. I'm going to announce a couple more raffle winners. On the red ticket, 917494. 917494. On the white ticket, 117891. 117891. On the red ticket, 917631. 917631. And on the white ticket, 117858. You can come over here and claim your prizes.
Okay, our last speaker for the afternoon is Berks County Commissioner Christian Leinbach. Commissioner Leinbach.
Thank you. I want to start by giving an apology. Sheriff Eric Weekneck was not able to make it. That's for Sheriff Weekneck. Sheriff Weekneck and his wife came in close personal contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19, and as of Friday, they are self-quarantining. Otherwise, Sheriff Weekneck would have been here. We appreciate the Sheriff's Color Guard and the work that Eric Weekneck and his team do every day to protect our community. Let's give a round of applause to the Sheriff and all of the Sheriff's deputies and staff. I want to thank Chief Grimm and Randy Gardner, except whenever I'm in Robesonia, it's Mayor Gardner. But I've known Randy for many, many years. A nation without law, let me start this again. A nation of laws without law enforcement is a nation without law and cannot long survive. Laws alone are not enough. A nation must enforce the law, otherwise anarchy will reign. The men and women of law enforcement are the front line. They are the thin blue line that separates Berks County, Pennsylvania, and the United States from lawlessness and anarchy. I'm here today to celebrate the men and women that serve in law enforcement here in Berks County and throughout the United States. But I'm also here to offer a warning and the understanding that we can and must do better. The vast majority of men in law and women in law enforcement today do an amazing job. They put their lives on the line every single day. Law enforcement is not perfect, but without it, we have anarchy. We do need to commit to do better. One of the areas was already alluded to. We need to get back to the idea of community policing. National Night Out is a big part of connecting law enforcement with our community. But over the last number of decades, with continued budget cuts for law enforcement, it has become more and more difficult to do what is necessary to have community policing. Defunding the police doesn't save or protect anyone. We need to understand that the primary responsibility of government at the federal level, the state level, and the local level is public safety. Whether at the federal level, dealing with international enemies, and at the local level, protecting our people. This is important. As I said in the beginning, we can have all the laws in the world, but if we don't have law enforcement, we have anarchy. We need to increase funding levels for police to the appropriate levels to provide better training, to provide the resources that allow our police departments to be part of the community. We also need to improve the hiring and testing process of law enforcement. And one major issue, I've talked to a number of officers, our district attorney and the sheriff. We need legislation in Pennsylvania that stops a practice that happens across the country, and it's referred to as pass the trash. It makes it difficult, if not impossible, where bad cops are let go from a police force for their record to follow them. Folks, that is a serious problem. But more importantly, we need to change the culture of law enforcement and our municipal leadership where we celebrate what we're doing today. We celebrate the men and women that do their job every single day. We tell the stories of the men and women's sacrifice that they provide so that we might be safe. So that we as parents or grandparents don't fear for our children. Please remember that the men and women of law enforcement are the front line. They are the thin blue line. that separates Berks County, Pennsylvania, and the United States from lawlessness and anarchy. And for that, I am so very thankful and grateful. May God's gracious blessing shine down on them and protect the men and women of law enforcement each day. God bless you.
I believe that the mayor's going to have a raffle winners, and then we'll conclude the program with Lieutenant Richards. 1 second.
Okay, first raffle winner is 918066. 918066. Second raffle winner is 918054. 918054. And by the way, the money we're making off the raffle and the donations are going to go to Amy Hiley, who's a local cancer survivor who just lost her job and her insurance. Amy, are you here?
Amen! Woo!
Amy, come on over here. We got two more raffle winners. 117844. 117844. That's on the white ticket. 117847. 117847. And you can go over here to pick up the winners. I won't. The next two raffle winners are 917511, 917511 on the red ticket, and 917559, 917559. On the white ticket, 117846, 117846, and 117695. This is my friend Amy. Amy just went through a bout with cancer. She had her first checkup since then, and they found her to be cancer-free. Is that right? But she had to have some reconstructive surgery. And did you have that last Friday? Okay. She had that last Friday, and how did that go?
Very good.
It went very good. Amy's gone through a lot in the last year or so, and on top of that, she just lost her job, and she'll be losing her insurance at the end of the month. So all the money that you donate, all the money that you that we get from the raffle will go towards Amy to help her out.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we got 4 more tickets. On the red tickets, I'm going to dig into the bottom here for the next 2. Red ticket, 917791, 917791, and 917991, 917991. And then, I'm going to dig down again. On the white ticket, 117978, 117978. Now we have the basket. And this one here is going to be for the grand prize. My wife made up this Back the Blue basket. It's got all kinds of things in it. There are, I believe, hats and T-shirts and wristbands and stuff like that. So this is the number for the grand prize winner. 117954. 117954. Just come over here and grab your prizes. I'd like to thank you again all for coming out. It's been a great turnout, and we appreciate everybody that helped again. The Three Percenters of Pennsylvania who manned the kitchen and sold the raffle tickets. Chief Lee and Grimm, Robesonia Borough Council, Harvey Marshall, Mike Martin, all the South Heidelberg Township police officers, all our speakers, Don Amon, Commissioner Leinbach, Trish Wirtz, and Ryan for leading us in the invocation. Thank you, Ryan. You did a great job. And just remember all the stories you heard today about the great police officers we have all across the country. And remember, when you read something in the paper or hear it on the news media, you're probably not getting the whole story. So there's plenty of media outlets out there where you can search for the truth. And I hope you take the time to do it. We have a great country. We need to stand up for what is right with America, and we need to oppose what is wrong with America. And we can do both and continue working. And I thank all of you for your hard sacrifice. I mean, you are all great Americans. You all, you're working now or you retired and worked all your life. You paid your taxes, you stayed out of trouble. Some of you served your country and your community. And we thank each and every one of you for that, because that is what makes America great. It's all of you people. So thanks again for coming out, and here's Chief Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of final acknowledgments. I forgot to mention that the Robesonia Pioneer Hose Company is here, has a tanker here for display. We have South Heidelberg Township Police cars here. Our school resource officer, Dave McQuaid, is here. If you haven't met him, if you have a student in Conner-Weiser School District, stop by and see him. There's a PSB, Pennsylvania State Police troop car here as well, and a trooper here to talk to as well. If your area is covered by state police, certainly say hi to them, as well as the firefighters. And we're going to conclude the program with Lieutenant Richards.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our program. Thank you very much for coming out and for supporting us. Thank you. If you didn't claim a prize, there's still some unclaimed prizes here for the raffle.